All right, guys. So let's talk real quick about Team Noble, right? So this is one of our invited teams to IEM, consisting of Boom, Edaculus, the Chosen Zygote, and Interrogate. So as far as like other tournaments, how they performed, they've currently finished. They're currently sitting at 40th place in Awesome Premier League. They're in ninth place of the second lobby of GLL, third place in PUBG Online NA Contenders, and they just finished their Curse qualifiers. Let's see where they're at in Group D. They are sitting in sixth place, so just out of that top four spot or top five spot where they needed to be. Now, this is one of the few teams that we do have that are going to going to IEM that have LAN experience, right? So they were third place at Gamescom in third-person squads. But again, we're going to talk about this a couple of times as far as the differences between Gamescom and IEM. Primarily everything at Gamescom was in third person, where we're far into the first person meta for competitive. So what do you guys think about Noble?
Noble
Yeah.
is they're one of those teams that they try to do that same thing every game, and they do have like backup strats. Northern Georgia definitely a stopping ground. So they just loot Northern Georgia. They make sure they get cars early, so they don't just immediately drop there. They have one or two guys find some vehicles early on, and then they just loot that deep as long as they can. Sometimes even going as far as to blue tank for a significant portion of time. I've cast games with them where just shrink after shrink after shrink. They're just constantly showing up late, and sometimes it works for them, sometimes it doesn't. It works better in games where there are less players, but I've also seen them die like dogs a lot, where they just show up late, and yep, there's a group there, so Noble just rolls in with their cars, and all of a sudden, wow, it's four guys with loot from Georgie. That's all ours because we killed them.
Yeah, the vehicles, I feel like that's one of the strats that they kind of coined back on the early days of PUBG Online. We used to call it the Noble strat because we would constantly see those guys just get four vehicles and pretty much build their own fort. I mean, we were kind of talking about this before we came into here, kind of bring your own compound type of formula, I guess you can say. It really works. Especially if you play your cards right and like explode your vehicle and not take the damage, of course.
This team has been together so long, right? They've
Yeah.
they've been here long enough that I mean, this is one of the first major orgs that was signed in PUBG. That amount of experience is going to kind of play into their favor. I know that Interrogate is kind of just one of these figures within the competitive community that's extremely highly thought of. Uh, Players across all teams really love the guy, and kind of look up to him as kind of a leader. So it would not surprise me to learn that Interrogate is the IGL for Noble. Um, but I gotta imagine that amount of experience is going to serve them pretty well, even if they're having these kind of poor showings recently. Where do you guys, if you had to put them at a place out of 20 teams, do you think that they will finish top 10, or do you think they'll be in the bottom 10?
I'm gonna put them like firmly at 10th place.
10th
Because
place.
they have decent strats and they do those strats every time, but I also see the strats they're doing consistently not working consistently.
I mean, hopefully not 10th place because they don't even have a prize pool. The last prize pool is 8th place, and they get $8,000 for the 8th place win. So 10th place, they'll definitely be disappointed. So I'm gonna put them 5th place,
Important to
$15,000
note, though.
coming their way.
Giving them the $15,000 spot.
15,000.
So even if they do end up somewhere, in that kind of 5th to 10th mid-range, kind of not lower half of the pack, but definitely kind of in that middle range, maybe those kills might be something that pushes them up a little bit. The one other thing that I will say about Noble is that they do play each one of those guys. They're usually pretty good at, if they find themselves in a position where there's only one player left, right? That player can tend to stay alive for a pretty long time. That might end up helping them out a lot. Who knows? It's really kind of up to the IEM circle gods. But that's gonna do it, I think, for Noble.
Yeah. Pretty well-known team in my opinion. Cloud9. We see lots of action from these guys. Right off the top of my head, I'm just gonna leave it open for you guys. Just throw it out there. But these guys are some fraggers. That's all I'm gonna say. So
So if we look at history, recent history at least, well, not so recent history. They came in first in Gamescom in first person duos with Chappie and Solid. So we're of course Cloud9 made up of Chappie, I am Chappie, Solid FPS, Frolicker, and Moody. Currently sitting in 36th place in APL. They finished in first place in the third lobby of the GLL preseason with 21 kills. They're currently sitting in 17th place in PUBG Online NA Showdown, and they finished second place in Cursed Trials qualifiers in Group A. What do we think about Cloud9 here? I know I've got lots of opinions about Cloud9.
Consistency is important.
Consistency is indeed important.
It is important to be able to place yourself in a situation where even if you don't always get first, that you at least place well. But it seems like Cloud9 is one of those really all-in squads.
I will say that I think that Cloud9, out of all the NA teams, I think Cloud9 plays and I hesitate to say this, but I feel like they play a more European style where they're going out there and trying to pick fights,
mhm.
right? They see, they're definitely one of the NA teams that is like, C player, shoot player. Doesn't matter where we are, doesn't matter how far we are, how long we're engaging them from. Uh, doesn't matter where the blue is. If they see somebody, they're engaging on it. You can engage in fights, and if you come out on top, fantastic. That's great. You're ending up with kills and you're ending up moving on. But if you engage in that fight and it's, in an inappropriate time, or your team is slightly split up, or you just, fall down a little bit ahead of time, it can really kind of just wreck your team and damage them irreparably for the remainder of the game. They're definitely all in. They commit to whatever the shot calling is, which is good. That's a great thing to see from a team. You don't want to like any half and half, decisions going on. And this is also one of the teams that I know has been boot camping extremely heavily. I mean, they've been hosting scrims for other IEM teams and just playing out of their minds right now. So this is going to be one of those weird ones as far as trying to predict where they're going to end up. Let's do top 10, bottom 10. I personally, I definitely feel that they're going to finish top 10. From there, they could finish first or they could finish 10th. It really just depends on how the games play out and how the circles play out and how uh, who they end up engaging in fights with. And I know this is kind of like vague as hell, like this could be said about any team, but
Mhm.
when you have a team that is like this, that picks these fights and is very aggressive the way they are, that's kind of what you get, right?
I am very worried for Cloud9 right now. Like you said, they're a team that likes to take fights, and you're kind of allowed to do that. Like I'm looking at the stats that are listed for the NA Showdown. Our top 5 or 6 teams are all groups that get an average of 5 to 6 kills a game. That is very consistent. And I think the reason that Cloud9 has issues is that they take fights with these teams that are oftentimes just in better positions or better period than Cloud9. So if they're taking fights with good teams, and that's usually when they die, IEM is going to be like the top 10 of NA and EU. It's going to be where all the best teams are. So Cloud9's strat of take more fights is going to be further hampered by the fact that, yeah, there's more good teams at this tournament. So if they don't change their strat, I actually think it's going to work worse at IEM than it would normally because they're up against so many better teams, so many better shooters. So I'm actually going to put them below top 10.
We kind of saw this, like Poro brought up, though. I mean, they're also going against these top teams, and they took that first place 3 times in a row. Um, it just really depends on the day, the circles, and who you run into early on with this loot. If I had to put a place on where they might come in, regardless, everyone's going to be mad at us, for placing other people over them. So we're not
Sorry,
going to win.
guys.
We're not going to win there.
Nah,
But
it's
I'll
fine.
say 4th place. They're a big
Wow.
organization. Yeah, I mean, they're a big org. These guys, they have the pressure to perform. And we all know if you don't perform,
But at the end of the day, I still feel like, Cloud9, that as their identity as a team is that of a fragging team. And if they're put into a situation where they have to do that, I think that they have at least maybe a better than 50-50 shot of coming out ahead in it. So moving on to our next team, Evil Geniuses. So Evil Geniuses made up of Ghoul, Pandago, Watts, and Nomi. They're currently sitting in third place in Lobby 1 of the GLL preseason with 16 kills to their name. They're also currently in 16th place in PUBG Online in a showdown series for November. And then they were also in the Curse Trials Qualifiers Group D. In the finals, they finished in 7th overall. EG, pretty recently minted. This was a NA contenders team that only just moved up to Showdown this past month in PUBG Online. Not a whole lot known about these guys. I don't know. I guess they're starting to become more known as the weeks go on.
I mean, as far as knowing these guys, they're definitely known for the most part within their realms. From previous games, I want to say. Nomi, right? He came from Dota 2, right? Competitive gaming and Halo. So, I mean, he has this kind of competitive esports to him as far as experience-wise. And then Z-Watts played a lot of Rainbow Six. So these guys, they definitely have a background.
Because they have those competitive pedigrees. They have like what it takes mentally to be able to adjust and adapt in this game. I think if they can do those things, they'll be in a pretty good spot. But if they can't, that's what the issue is. If they get constantly shut down by a lot of our bigger names.
I mean, that's a reasonable criticism. You can't just gloss over the fact that this was an IEM invite that raised a lot of eyebrows from the start. Now, I will say this is not a team of fraggers. This is not a high kill squad. Their bread and butter is positioning. And they try to play kind of a smart overall meta game. And sometimes it works out for them and sometimes it doesn't. And it seems like a lot more times recently it has not worked out for them as well. They end up getting caught up in these third, fourth circle pushes, right? Where everything's crazy and everywhere around the circle there's fights going on. That's typically when EG goes down. They're one of these teams that's really kind of beholden to circle RNG as to how well they're going to do. As far as like top 10, bottom 10, where I think they'll end up, I got to figure that this is going to be a team that's going to end up in the bottom 10.
I think I'm with you there. Once again, IEM, going to be a lot of really good teams. There are a lot of really good shooters. Getting caught up on the edge consistently and having that be the what you die the most is a sign of not being able to adapt and actually really just gauge the circle and how it's going to move very well. Evil Geniuses, can they shoot as well? Probably not. Do they have as good positioning? No. So what do they have going for them? Consistency with like just always centering at the right time, then always dying in like, that in that 6th through 14th spot. That's where I'm going to put them, man. I'm going to put them at the bottom end of that too, 10th to 14th place, because they just don't have consistency in the 10th place and below is just not that valuable of a trait.
All right. So you guys pretty much doubting Evil Geniuses. You heard it here first. These guys, I don't know where they're at on the screen, but I'm pointing all at them. Honestly, I really can't tell. I'm not going to place them just simply because I feel like there's more to it. A lot of these squads have recently maybe looked into or had acquired coaches. I mean, we have all these other factors that we just aren't taking into consideration. And you guys might be talking about the Evil Geniuses without a coach. Now, Evil Geniuses with the coach word on the block, I don't know. Word on the block is they have a coach. The coach might be that magical sauce, that magic glue that puts them together and maybe transforms this team. You guys going to have to deal with it because I think
God.
I don't think we know. I don't think we know where they're going to place.
All it takes to finish in that top spot is one fortunate game out of 4 where they pick everything right, where everything goes their way. EG is actually usually pretty good about keeping all 4 of their players alive till late game. They don't generally take early fights. They don't take early engagements. They just try to keep all 4 members alive till late, which is a huge deal, right? Your win percentage chances go way up if you have 4 players in the 3rd or 4th circle. You can never know. They definitely are one of these wildcard teams, but we'll end up seeing very soon. All right, so the next team that we're going to talk about is Tempo Storm. Tempo Storm consisting of Valier, your boy Dre, Maluk, and Sampty. They finished 17th place in the Awesome Premier League, 6th place in Lobby 2 of their GLL preseason run with 15 kills to their name. They're currently at 4th place in the PUBG Online NA Showdown. And for Curse Trials qualifier, they finished 3rd place in their group, but then when the finals came around, they ended up finishing in 11th.
I mean, Tempo Storm, I actually have had the privilege multiple times in custom games to actually verse these guys. We always see them dropping. I mean, from what I've noticed, more or less on the southwest side of the map. I mean, would you agree with me on that, Poro? I know
Oh,
you've actually
100%.
talked about this before. The Gatka, the Quarry, the Primorsk area, they pretty much just loot up because, for the most part, no squads really go over there right now. We might have one or two, but they loot everything up. They get their vehicles. They know the hard spawns. Then next thing you know, they just show up out of nowhere and start shooting you out of the blue. I've seen them pull some clutch plays with just two of these guys. They just have great synergy, and I feel like their communication right now is on point. They always know pretty much who to take out first or whatnot, and get that win. So I like Tempo Storm a lot. I actually do. Your boy Dre in the house.
I mean, this is a team that has played together for so long and know each other so well, and they have, they've got every role is just picked out and perfect. They know exactly what their place is in the team. So much to be said for these teams that have this experience together and these communication kind of set up between them. So like they know what each other's going to do before they even do it. When it comes to where they hold position late circle, they have some of the most clever and creative places to hold down. I mean, they find divots in the middle of wide open fields that I didn't even know were there,
Yeah.
and they hold those, and just with they get a couple of vehicles. They know where the one place that they can get run up on is the danger point, I guess. They have somebody watching that at all times while Maluk and Dre and Valley 8 just frag out. Their late game circle positioning is really what I think kind of gives them an edge right now. They've been doing really, really well at that lately.
I think that they're one of our better teams right now. I just hope that they can, number one, find a different kind of split looting strat come IEM, as you said, the southwest side. If someone finds that out, they might sort of get contested. And split looting, that's oftentimes a way where you're just going to lose like one member sometime just randomly. But
Yeah.
they have a lot of the checklists that I think is going to be very, very good for an IEM team. They are able to get a lot of kills. They're able to frag out, and they're able to have a lot of different kinds of game knowledge. So different places where, like a lot of other top teams, they just know that if they have like some of the things that are required, like a couple of UAZs to guard this or this side of a field, suddenly this open field becomes a kind of a bit of a fort. So definitely one of our better teams, I would say, coming in. I just hope that they can perhaps evolve their early game strats and hopefully sort of mitigate some of the risk that just comes along with split looting.
As far as Tempo Storm goes, I think that if they can manage to get 4 players to the third circle, that they have a likelihood of winning every single game. I mean, they're that good, and if they can manage to get those players to that third, fourth circle and keep a full team alive with 4, uh, they're going to be really tough to stop. And because of that, I'm putting them top 5. I mean, I'm easily putting them top 5.
I think you put on a really good point. I think that they have everything that it takes. I think the only thing that really messes them up early is them either specifically getting hated on or having their strats accidentally get hated on just by teams that are happening to do the same thing and losing players here or there. I'm going to say between third and eighth place for Tempo
Wow.
Storm.
Okay. I know Tempo Storm, they have a long history of pretty much being rivals with one particular org that we're going to be seeing them go against, and that's TSM. We have Tempo Storm. They play Hearthstone. They play Heroes of the Storm, now PUBG, all these games, Vainglory, and they go against each other quite a lot in these other competitions. So I want to keep that rival going, that whole TSM versus Tempo Storm rival. And I don't want to say who I'll predict will win if we see him on the battlefield, but I'll agree with Poro. Top 5, Temple Storm. They're just a great team all around.
I, this is probably going to be the shortest segment of this entire thing. We're going to talk about Luminosity with Ninja, JP2, Drassel, and Chipsy. They finished fourth place in Gamescom TPP duos with Ninja and Chipsy taking that. And then they finished first place in Gamescom TPP squad play. Other than that, we got nothing. They have played in literally no other events, at least that we can see, any of the major ones that we've been kind of listing off as we've been going on. I know that, Ninja and Drassel are really big streamers. I've been seeing Ninja play. I guess he's boot camping by playing Destiny 2 a lot lately. But other than that, this is Luminosity is a huge question mark going into IEM.
I don't know. A lot of people, they like to call Luminosity the whole streamer squad type of deal. And they get a lot of shade for that. One advantage that these guys have over these other squads, maybe besides Noble, is their experience at these LAN events. And I think this is going to factor in. It's going to be a big factor. The chairs, the equipment, the noise, all types of outside factors that our players right now, they're placing, top five that we like to talk about. We see them in Awesome, we see them in JDLL, we see them in PUBG Online. They do extremely well, but that's at the comfort of their houses. That's at the comfort in their nice little chair. They're climate controlled, 75 degrees or whatnot. I'm serious though. These are
Oh, I
factors
believe
that
they are. They
LAN
are.
events
Absolutely.
are going to be make or break. I mean, just being able to not break under the pressure. And I feel like Luminosity, they have lots of experience with not breaking under the pressure. So it's going to factor into their winning quite a lot, I feel like. That and, just their experience with Battle Royale games in general.
I think that there's some very obvious reasons that they were probably invited, and that was probably due to their placements in Gamescom. A lot of the best teams weren't really invited at the time. So this IEM, this is going to be a very different environment. I don't think they're going to perform well at all. I'd probably put them in the bottom 15.
In defense of the streamer team thing, right? They were getting that streamer team label before going into Gamescom, and then they won Gamescom. Now, okay, that was third person squads. Obviously, first person, a lot different. We've moved into a whole new thing. The teams that they were playing in Gamescom weren't of the caliber that they're going to be seeing at IEM. None of these other teams are going to play it against them. They're not going to know what Luminosity does, what their meta strats are. Just based off of the information that I'm presented with, I definitely got to put them bottom 10, most likely in that same 15 to 20 spot that Seal put them in. But they could come out and just wow everybody.
I'm on the border as far as placing them goes, just because we don't necessarily know. But I know for a fact that they do place high, it's going to be because of all their experience with Fortnite, with H1Z1, and now PUBG Online. PUBG Battlegrounds. Just all that experience with LAN events in general, that the crowds roar, the environment. I mean, they just have that experience that some of these squads, this is their first time going to a major event. They're going to be sweating bullets on that stage. I already know that for a fact. I mean, I would. All that experience, I'm going to put them sixth place. Sixth place.
Jeez Louise.
Wow.
Sixth place.
Wow.
$12,000.
I can think of 6 teams off the top of my head that I would put above them.
I can think of 6 teams that weren't even invited to IEM that I would. But
I'm just saying, because of their experience alone.
Yeah, I agree with you that the experience, having that experience as a LAN and having that experience as pro players before is actually going to be of benefit to them. I don't think it's going to be of benefit them that much though to bring them to 6th place. I mean, I think it might be, it might benefit them to maybe get to, 12th or 11th, but when they end up coming home with a very high placement, we're all going to come back to this, and Dave will shove it all in our faces for sure.
And if not, who cares? I don't care. Regardless, win or lose, it's going to be an entertaining day.
So that's all we'll say. We ended up talking a lot more about Luminosity than I thought we would, but that'll be it for them. The last team we're going to talk about today, and it's probably the one that, I'm going to guess most people are most interested to see and hear, TSM, consisting of Vis, AIM-PR, Smack, and Break. They finished second place in the Gamescom TPP Solos, with Break taking that title. More recently, TSM did finish in fourth place in the APL, and they actually finished first in their Cursed Trials qualifier group, Group B. Let's see where they finished as far as finals go. 8th place. So TSM, I know they've been very kind of picky as far as what competitive tournaments that they want to be a part of, right? So they got involved in APL and they got involved in Curse Trials, but they don't play PUBG Online. They don't play GLL. Basically, one thing that I can see that kind of stretches across both of these, right? They tend to drop North George and they tend to push super, super late. They are blue tanking, late pushing, very, very risk averse, not taking fights unless they absolutely have to. They prefer to engage from distance. This is not a team that's going to crash a compound. This is a team that's going to play the very, very edge of the circle and try to get picks from distance and range. And they'll push in super late on foot. They try to be as sneaky as they can be. It seems to be a very effective play style for them. It's just boring as hell. The one thing that I think is going to be rough for TSM is that they really, really seem like they struggle in fights that they don't start, in fights that they don't pick. When they get kind of ambushed, it doesn't usually seem to go well for them.
It's going to be a fight between TSM and Noble a lot of the time, I would say, because they seem to have effectively the exact same strat. Northern Georgie, blue tank, you can because you lose Georgie, you have a lot of meds, and then show up late and play edge. The way that I see this strat fail a lot is when you try to go too far with avoidance. There comes to be a point in the game, especially if you're playing edge, where you just gotta murder people. I just hope that TSM reevaluate the way that they play the game once they enter the zone, once they enter the circle, because it is very important, in my opinion, to properly identify what fights you have to take.
I mean, they have a couple things going for them, right? First of all, if they were to get into a fight versus Noble, based off of the information we know, the stats that we have available based off of their previous performances with other leagues, they have a higher kill count, more or less than Noble. So you have to kind of think that if they had to 1v1 Noble, they would probably win just based off of their ability to just get higher frags throughout, all the games that they've been in. I feel like a lot of squads are doing that right now. The whole boot camping, whatnot, all in the same room, the same house or same facility, and just playing side by side. I feel like TSM, they've been doing this for a while. They've been doing this before all these people started boot camping for IEM. So they have the ability to communicate well, and it shows. Poro mentioned that one thing that TSM is really good at is having all four of their members alive, and they travel in a pack. And I feel like traveling in a pack is very important right now in the current meta. It's going to help them in the long run. And, if they do spot a squad, they can quickly get cover and, exchange those fights, whatnot. And, another thing Poro mentioned, most of the time they might not win if they weren't the first to initiate the fight. I feel like that's a lot with a lot of squads. Not a lot of squads can take a couple shots and then quickly turn around and win that fight. It's tough. I mean,
I would really be looking at TSM alongside Noble to be, once they identify that other teams are using the same strat as them, to actually be looking into different things that they can sometimes do.
One thing I will say is that they're another one of these teams where if they are kind of put in this unfortunate position where they only have one guy left, they are really good at surviving. That one guy will survive for a long time, but that kind of goes part and parcel with that whole kind of risk averse play style, is that you get really, really good at playing hide and seek when you're the last person left. Given their strategy, they could end up anywhere. I do feel that they are good enough to where they will finish in the top 10. But I don't think that they'll end up in the top 5. I think that they're going to be another one of these teams that ends up finishing somewhere in the middle of the pack.
Adaptability is going to be really important for this team. I hope that they can bring it. I haven't seen them recently, so I can't say for sure if, adaptability is looking to be one of the team's promising traits, but it will be very important going in. I'm going to put them around where you did, 5 to 10, but also as a caveat, above Noble.
So it's another thing. There's so many factors going into this event. But if I had to put TSM on the top 10, I would put them at 7.
All right, so we finally found one that we all kind of agree on here. That's going to do it for TSM.
I'm going to give them the deal with it, because you guys are going to get some haters for it. You guys are going to get the haters for it. Deal with it, haters out there.
Deal with it,
I didn't say it. They did, so I'm just saying deal with it.